we're taking care of roll call also at the same. Okay, public comments not on the agenda. If we had any public comment, not on the agenda. Any item not on the agenda?
No.
All right, thank you.
We do have one person in the audience raising their hand.
Okay.
We have Justin Hamilton Hall.
Very good.
Justin, are you there?
Good evening. My name is Justin Hall.
Good evening.
Very long time. I have one question. I think when you look into see, I always get this in Napa County agenda. It show agenda on this for Napa County agenda. I'm thinking we can look in and see if this clerk can do that and see that there was this show agenda. Oh, this is today's agenda. I can click it to go to agenda. I think we need to look at that and see if we can do that sometime in the future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I know all web agendas are available on respective agency web pages. Okay, any other waiting in line?
Do we have anybody else in the audience that would like to make a public comment? Please raise your hand. We have one more public comment, Mayor.
Okay.
Melissa, can you please state your name for the record?
Hello, my name is Melissa Lamatina.
Good evening.
Good evening. Hi. So I'm a resident of American Canyon for 46 years. And I have some concerns regarding the potential dismantling of the Open Space Committee. I believe dismantling the Open Space Committee would be a huge mistake for the community and the area.
Excuse me, sorry. We'll take public comment. This is on the agenda.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
So we will have an opportunity for public comment as we work through this matter tonight.
Okay.
So please stand by.
I will stand by. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else on the?
No, Mayor, I do not see any other public comment at this time.
Okay, all right. Well, we will close public comment on items not on the agenda at this time and move forward with our agenda this evening. Business, item 1, future of the Open Space Advisory Committee.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, and Open Space Advisory Committee members. The item before you this evening relates to the future of the Open Space Advisory Committee. As noted in the staff report, the committee or the council formed the committee almost 2 decades ago, and the council's original purpose for the committee has been largely achieved. And without council input or further referral, the committee has really been on a sort of autopilot the last couple of years. The situation's not anyone's fault, although emotions are running high. The overarching purpose tonight is to address the disconnect that has existed between the council and one of its citizen advisory committees. The council has received public comments on this item, and each of these comments has reflected a different understanding of the current situation and personal opinions about what should come next. This broad variation really underscores the lack of clarity of the situation. At the moment, or upcoming, 2 of the committee members' terms will be up. That'll be up at the end of the calendar year. And those recruitments at the moment are on hold pending the outcome of this discussion. The council doesn't have to use citizen advisory committees, but you can utilize your discretion to do so. The primary purpose of a citizens advisory committee, including the Open Space Advisory Committee, is to provide special advice to the city council on matters that are of the city council's purview, namely goals, policies, priorities, those sorts of things. And as you consider the options in front of you, staff recommends that the council identify the items that are within the council's purview that you might benefit from special advice on. In effect, when a council appoints a citizens advisory committee, what you're doing is appointing a committee to stand in the shoes of the council by considering policies, et cetera. And the council then requests the committee make recommendations to them about those items. Said differently, the council doesn't ask the committee to provide input on topics that wouldn't ordinarily be the purview of the council in the first place. There are three options that are presented for the council this evening. I should note, none of these options address what are one of the more pressing needs of the community, which are much more operational in nature, namely the ongoing of the maintenance of the trail network and the new open space and the wetlands. And while that operational need is probably better addressed through additional resources such as volunteers, philanthropy, those sorts of things, really trying to augment the existing city resources, staff didn't bring that up as a part of the staff report because we didn't want to conflate the policy matters versus the operational issues. As far as the options themselves, they're laid out into the staff report. The option number one is generally characterized as reauthorizing the Open Space Advisory Committee, but renaming it the Open Space and Bicycle Advisory Committee, and to really memorialize the work that's been going on the last couple of years and folding into the nature of the bicycle advisory component. The second option, as further laid out in the staff report, recommends moving the purview of open space issues over to the Parks and Community Services Commission, PCS, and then also designating the Planning Commission as the Bicycle Advisory Committee and discontinuing the Open Space Advisory Committee. The last option, something that was discussed with the City Council and the Open Space Advisory Committee back on May 31st, is the idea of elevating and expanding the Open Space Advisory Committee's role into a paid commission and to further expanding its purview to include issues related to sustainability. Those are generally the three options, and the staff report kind of lays those options out. We previously met this body, the council and the Open Space Advisory Committee met, like I mentioned, on May 31st and reviewed the draft work plan that the Open Space Advisory Committee had developed. And it was at that time the council had decided they wanted to meet with the Parks and Community Services Commission first before making any decisions. That occurred back in August, I believe it was, and has since adopted the work plan for PCS. And so we're now at a place where staff's only recommendation here is to pick one of the three options. It's not appropriate for staff or really for anyone else to tell the council where to seek its advice from. And that's why staff didn't recommend any of the three options itself, but it is our role to kind of explain what those options might be and then implement whatever direction the council ends up deciding upon. So in the interest of time, I won't belabor any of these other points, but available to answer any questions that the council has or members of the public. Or
Thank you, Mr. Hollick. We do need be mindful of the time, so I'll be checking it regularly here. Having served on the city council since 2002, and in 2003 is when this whole matter came forward. It was out of the city was growing very rapidly, and city, Councilmember Joseph was city manager at that time, and we could not keep up with what we had available with parks and community services operations in the city. So formation of this was to look at other opportunities. We knew new open space we could get out to once a year with our then fire chief, Keith Caldwell. And the wetlands was totally closed off. We could not get down into the waste management area. So we needed formed an ad hoc committee, meaning a limited term, go to work on this project and find out how we might enhance that or other operations within the city. That is beyond the scope right now, or back then, of what Parks and Community Services could do. So that was the formation of it. It's driven by the work plan set up by the City Council with regard to Parks and Community Services and what we want to do in addition to that. PCS gets their direction from council vis-a-vis management administration, and likewise OCS gets their direction from those discussions as well. I think the benefit has been exemplary in terms of what has been accomplished by OCS. Wonderful work out there at Newell open space, and certainly with the assistance of the Waste Management Authority, which I've served on since then. I was able to gain access to the wetlands out to the river and the trail system, some 14 miles of that. So we've got quite a treasure here in American Canyon with the work that's been done. I certainly thank everybody who is now serving and those who have served in the past to make this such a huge success. So at this point, I think it's time to entertain some comments from folks. Maybe wishing to comment on options or.
Pardon me, Mr. Mayor, is that for city council or is that for anybody here?
Anybody on this Zoom call?
I, for one, would like to hear comments from OSAC, and then maybe bring it back to the council. So
Okay.
just my suggestion.
So
Don't we have a public comment?
we do get to that at some point here as well. Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to hear public comment in the interest of time.
Okay.
So public comment first.
As I see enough heads nodding,
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea too.
we'll do public comment then. Somebody, do we have in line of public comment?
Yes, Mayor Garcia, I'd just like to note that we did receive 5 written public comments. They were sent out to the City Council and also OSOC today. Those were received by Nance Matson, Kara Vernor, Tammy Wong, Kristen Einberger, and Kathy Margalotti, and those will be made part of the meeting minutes. Currently, we have 4 people in the audience that would like to make a public comment. I will just go as in the order they were received. We will start with Melissa. Melissa, if you could state your name for the record, please.
Melissa Lamatina.
Thank you very much. Welcome this evening, and just reminding folks that comments are limited to 3 minutes. So please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So like I said a minute ago, I'm a resident of American Canyon for 46 years. I have big concerns regarding the potential dismantling of the Open Space Committee. I believe dismantling the Open Space Committee would be a huge mistake for the community and the surrounding area. In a time where our world is being impacted by climate change everywhere, like for instance, my garden did not grow this year because of the heat. And I know other people, their backyard gardens suffered, heat, water, it's a problem, right? And I know there has been a talk, like you said, about ACCPF taking on the climate change initiative. No disrespect to ACCPF, but we have an amazing group of people on the Open Space Committee with degrees in the environment. And I believe that's their area of expertise. So I think it would be a disservice to dismantle them completely. And if funding is an issue, I'm sure y'all can come up with something, right? We need to think out of the box, make things work. We can do it. And as a side note, I noticed at our parks and like in front of City Hall, we just have garbage cans. We don't have recycle bins, nor do we have compostable bins. So I was just wondering if those are gonna start rolling out in our parks and in our community. So that is just a note I noticed. And I'm an organic gardener. I take the climate seriously, and I really do respect our open space committee, and I think they're brilliant, and I think they should stay together. That's all I have to say. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Next, we have Justin Hamilton Hall.
Thank you, Liz, and thank you, everybody. I don't know how long this board was set up. We're looking at 2003, and it's a very long time. And I don't want to see these people leave. And I like these people because working team, be kind other to people. I see some people do the food drive. I love this team. We are friendly, City American. So thank you guys. Good work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Justin.
Next speaker, please.
Yes, we have Kara Verneur.
Greetings, Mr. Mayor, council members, and committee members. I'm Kara Werner, the Executive Director of the Napa County Bicycle Coalition. And I wanted to just bring up some additional points regarding the matter of having a bicycle advisory commission. So that does seem as if it's been sort of pushed aside in the consideration. I noticed bicycles weren't mentioned even in the intro to this conversation. And there's a lot of really great reasons to have a bicycle advisory committee, some of which we talked about in the comments, and another person from my board might mention in a minute. But I wanted to point out the future too. I don't know if you know that Carlsbad, the city of Carlsbad, just declared a state of emergency because of the number of bicycle deaths and collisions that are happening, in large part due to the huge influx of e-bikes. So e-bikes are a matter that people have a lot of feelings about. The state just passed a bill, a legislation saying that class 3 e-bikes, which can go up to 28 miles per hour, are now welcomed on class 1 paths like the Vine Trail. Cyclists, non-cyclists, all folks seem to have a lot of feelings about who can go where, and laws and regulations haven't quite caught up to that. There's going to be issues around enforcement. Should bikes be enforced in the way that cars are enforced? It's a really great time to have a bicycle advisory committee of folks who are out there regularly riding the roads of American Canyon, and who have experience with these different types of and varieties of bicycles that are coming our way. So that's just an additional point I would love for you to consider and maintain. It's important to have folks who have expertise in these matters on advisory committee. So that's one of the reasons we're against combining it with the planning commission. But we would, we would support other options, or the idea of having a bicycle committee combined with a sustainability committee. Given the overlap in those plans there, it would be a shame to sort of have to, the right hand not know what the left hand is doing in that matter. So thank you very much for your consideration. And I just want to also applaud Councilmember Oro for calling for a Bike First City. There's a lot of potential there, and there's a lot of reason to do it for health, for the environment. And American Canyon's been so forward thinking in terms of creating, establishing a climate crisis and a ban on new gas stations. And I would just, love and ask for you to continue to be forward thinking around bicycles. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Mayor, I show 3 more public comments. Next one is Mario Valdez. Hi, Mario.
Hello, council members. My name is Mario Valadez. I am an American Canyon resident and a board member of the Napa County Bicycle Coalition. I would just like to reiterate a few points made by our executive director just moments ago, especially around having a bicycle advisory committee, which has seemingly just been kind of tagged along to the open space advisory committee. And so we think it's important that the concern of citizens and the voice of citizens revolving around safe streets and bicycle friendly streets be heard. And as far as I'm aware, although it has technically been a part of the open space advisory committee, there hasn't been any input that the open space advisory committee has done with bike plans regarding bicycle, the bicycle network around the city of American Canyon. And so, as Kara mentioned, bicycle advocacy and the concerns of pedestrians and bicyclists has been claimed as a top priority in American Canyon. And there are other bicycle advisory committees in cities around Napa County. And so I believe it would only be right that the city of American Canyon also has a designated group of people, whether that's as an active transportation and Active Transportation and Sustainability Committee with other responsibilities as well, or option 3 that's been laid out in the recommendations, but with specific tasks and responsibilities around bike advisory. We want to make sure that there's a specific responsibility involved in any commission or committee that's created moving forward, since it seems like it's been a little overlooked within the Open Space Advisory Committee. We would be against, options 1 and 2 laid out in the recommendations, and so we would like either option 3 with a combination of responsibilities related to bike advocacy, or a separate option, which is an Active Transportation and Sustainability Committee, which is similar to what they have in St. Helena. That way, there's a specific cohort of group of individuals that is making sure and keeping track of pedestrian and active transportation and bike projects that happen or are planned to happen around the city of American Canyon, especially with the American Canyon Bicycle Plan that has been laid out. There's a lot of great potential for bike facilities and pedestrian improvements around the city of American Canyon. And so we would like to make sure.
Mario, thank you for your comment. You're out of time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Okay. Our next speaker is TW. Hi, Tammy. Can you please state your name for the record?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is Tammy Wong. I'm a resident. Good evening. As most of you know, I'm a resident here in American Canyon, and I walk, bicycle, or run every day in our city for recreation or transportation. And I really love the views of our wetlands, enjoy seeing the wildlife who live there, enjoy seeing my neighbors and visitors to our city enjoying and appreciate it. So I'm really thankful every day that our city had the foresight and the depth and value of OSAC's contribution in developing that park for us today. I sent a written comment, so I'm not going to repeat much of what I said, but I do want to emphasize. I think the committees and commissions that you have established with residents, those are, those are a big part of our city. They're like the heart of our city, helping our residents be involved, be engaged, and giving this feedback to council. If anything, I would love to see more committees added, more opportunities for residents to be involved. However, the reason that I supported combining some committees was it seems like we have an issue with maybe not wanting to add too many committees, but I definitely agree with what Mario and Kara have said about we need to elevate the importance of bicycling. I've been trying to ride my bike more the last couple of years, and even though the wetlands linear path has been around for 10 years, we only recently added signs and trail markings saying share the trail. And I had to ask for those because I was getting dirty looks from people as I was riding my bike on the linear path, and I realized, oh my God, there's no signs here. So I was so grateful when the previous Parks and Recs director added this. So in my mind, we need to elevate bicycling so that having important signage like that is not an afterthought that gets overlooked, but something that, it's on a checklist of things. We have someone dedicated to bicycling and it's just part of the routine. So I really would like to see bicycling added. And as they said, not just, put it into an existing committee, but be thoughtful about it and have people selected that are really experts in that area and, and are aware of how things should be. I'm a casual rider. I like to ride my bike and I want to be able to do it safely. And I want my neighbors to be able to do it safely. One of my neighbors who's in her 70s, she rode her bike for the first time after a long while when the American Canyon Bike Shop led a little monthly ride for us. And it was so great to see her out there riding. And I want her to feel safe riding. And the other thing is I applaud the staff.
Tammy, thank you for your comment. You're out of time. Thank you for your comment.
Thank you.
I'd remind those present for the meeting that it's now just about 5:30. We would have about 45 minutes left for us to have our deliberation on the issue.
Mayor Garcia, looks like we have one more public comment.
Okay, if the speaker could be brief, I would request that.
Sure. Karina Cervente. Hi, Karina.
Hi, I'll try to make it to 3 minutes. Thank you,
Thank
ma'am.
you.
First, I really disagree with having a nonprofit organization added to this small city of ours. The comments about making OSAC a nonprofit has been running around, so I just want to have that clear. I just don't think that this little city of ours can get one more nonprofit. I'm a little concerned about the situation with the meetings for PCS and OSAC being canceled. And one of the things I see a lot is that a lot of the staff has canceled a lot of activities. They have the same amount of people, but now they don't have after school programming for middle schoolers. They don't have to do after school sports activities. They canceled the swimming program for the middle school in the spring. And so a lot of things have been canceled, and a lot of events lately have been canceled. So it concerns me that if we have the same amount of staff, less things to do, they keep canceling PCS and OSAC. I hardly feel that we need to have the bike advisory committee. The kids, it's like a Russian roulette going to school. There's been so many accidents, and council and the city have done nothing about putting pedestrian and bicycle beacons, security for our kids. We've been asking for them. I mean, it took 20 years to get a sidewalk on Eucalyptus, right? So we need the bicycle advisory committee to be functioning and to actually make changes here in our city, make our streets and our sidewalks and crosswalks safer for our kids. I have a kid, and when it's a bike to school day, I cringe because crossing 29, crossing the sidewalks, it's like, is my kid gonna get hit? And I pray that doesn't happen. But I work at the middle school for 8 years, and I've seen so many accidents because there are no pedestrian bicycle beacons on the crosswalks, and people are not paying attention. So, I don't think that PCS needs to have any more members. So,
Rena, you're out of time. Thank you for your comment.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate the public comment. Do we need to move on with our meeting? I just remind everybody we have a hard stop at 6:45. Now, we've taken care of public comment for the council at this point. Council had any comments? I believe Council Member Mark Joseph. If you still want to lead the conversation or have.
Well, from my perspective, I think the council should weigh in last, just to, since we're the ones who are going to actually make the decision, we should hear the public comment now from OSAC. And then
anybody from OSAC wishing to comment?
I'd like to comment. I'm ready to comment if I may.
Very pleased to.
I can talk all day on this. I'm going to try to limit it to 3 points and be as quick as I can.
Thank you.
On the first one, a little pushback that our committee hasn't really been involved in bikes. I think that our committee in some ways had a hand in the Vine Trail formation. And I want to explain that. I attended a Napa County Bicycle Advisory Committee meeting a few years before the Vine Trail was conceived. We had a representative on there, and I went to talk about the Ag Preserve and the restriction on recreation trails in the Ag Preserve. I was trying to lobby for that, but I found out about them. And when David Brown left, I asked to be appointed to that committee. And at that time, a guy, Dieter Dice from Calistoga, was convincing the other committee members to lobby the cities and the county to contribute $20,000 each for a feasibility study for a bicycle trail from Calistoga to Vallejo. And if that sounds familiar to you, the study was done. It's called the Greenways study, and it created the blueprint for the Vine Trail. And what happened was when that study was made, Chuck McMinn from St. Helena was also doing an initiative for as his position of president of the Vintners that year. He wanted to do a trail from Calistoga to St. Helena. So a neighbor of Dieter Dice, a neighbor in common, introduced the two. And for me, that was when the Vine Trail was born. And my first assignment on the Napa County, now it's the Active Transportation Advisory Committee, was to lobby American Canyon to contribute its share, $20,000. But the share was reduced to $5,000 in recognition the city had already done a lot for bikes and it was a young city. That proposal went to OSAC. OSAC approved it, sent it to City Council. City Council approved it. So that's where the money for the feasibility study came from. And the consultant that did that study, Philip Sales, was hired by Chuck McMinn to be the executive director of the Vine Trail the first 10 years. He just retired recently. So that was public citizens going in and doing that. And I was at the first meeting because I'm on Friends of the Napa River board and they were invited to send a representative. I've been on that board, I'm still on that board. And at the first meeting, the question was, do we want to go from Calistoga to St. Helena or Calistoga all the way to Vallejo? John Hofnagel from the Land Trust said, you should go all the way to Vallejo. And I agreed with that. I was waiting to talk. And I told him, I think that if you include the cities of American Canyon and Napa and do the longer trail, you probably won't have to pay for those constructions in those cities because they're going to do it on their own. Napa already had it complete. So it wouldn't cost the Vine Trail a lot of money, but it would get credit for a regional trail, make it easier to get grants instead of a small little ask from 6 miles and these other ones. And that proved to be okay because the Vine Trail, by my count, has $13 million in grants. Chuck McMinn is obviously the leader of this. I'm not claiming any credit here. I'm just saying that this was a group of citizens that got together, the Active Transportation Committee, and Chuck McMinn, he donated $1 million of his own, lent another $1 million, convinced Vintners and Visit Napa Valley to both contribute $2.5 million. And that's been very successful, and it has a $10 million grant application pending. So I'm using this to just say that that's the power of local citizens and advisory committees to envision something like that. And it's not something that's going to be done by city staff or county staff or any of those. Those aren't the big projects that people do. And so I wanted to make that distinction. The second thing is to correct the notion that OSAC was created for access to the Napa River and the wetlands. I mean, the Newell. Mark Joseph picked the people on that committee, and it was because of his suggestion that noticed the management plan for the Newell Open Space Preserve asked or recommended that a Friends of Newell Open Spaces group be created. So that was the purpose of the Friends of American Canyon Open Spaces volunteer group. We met with the city manager, Mark, and his public parks director, Randy Davis. I asked Randy one time, are you doing this attending because you want to or because you have to? He said, well, Mark's making me do it, but I don't mind. So we had great support then from that. And it was that committee, when we did stuff, we opened up Newell Preserve. We did an open day. We got permission. We brought our tables. We sat there. We recorded everybody that came. We had over 100 people the first day that came up. And so we were managing public access 2 days a year when we did our open days. And that committee existed for 2 or 3 years before we went to city council and asked for permission for Mark to negotiate with Lynch Canyon and the Fish and Wildlife. And that was when OSEC was created. So maybe the city council at that time thought, oh, we're just doing public access. But the precursor, the focus group, was to manage access to Newell Preserve and support Newell Preserve as a Friends type group. And we called it open spaces rather than Newell because we wanted wetlands. And I know, Mr. Mayor, you attended those meetings with us voluntarily.
Yes, I did.
You know about that. And my third point was this idea of the power as a city council that your purview is, what was it? Policy and things like that. I was taught that all powers of government stem from the people, that our department heads have only the authority that the city manager gives them, that the city manager has only authority that city council gives him, and that city council has only the authority that the voters give you. It's the voters' power. And to hear this suggested that you're only allowed to do policy or this other is, I just don't buy it. I think that all power stems from the people. It goes to you through who the citizens elect, and you're representing the people in that power. And so I wanted to make that distinction, because I'm confused when I hear that you have this certain role and you only have 3 choices tonight. I just don't buy that. I'm sorry. So those are my comments. Sorry to go on so long, but.
Thank you. Yes, we do need to mind the time, but thank you for your comments. Anybody else from OSAC wishing to comment at this time? Okay. Well then, council colleagues.
Oh, Nance has her hand up.
And Tara has her hand up. How about Scott and Kim? Do you have
Okay.
any comments? So we might as well make sure that everybody on open space and council has a chance to speak.
Certainly.
It looks like Tara had her hand up first, and then Kim, and possibly Scott, and then me. Thank you. Tara?
Okay, first, I'm in favor of option 3, and that is because it makes sense to me. Our open space work that we've already been doing, it has kind of slowed down a little bit, but we also have bicycle things that we could be working on, and I'm all for the sustainability and the climate action. And we're a group of at least 3 of us have degrees and background in environmental sciences. So it makes sense that we would continue that work and take those things on. As far as why or how we became representatives of the bicycle community, from my recollection, this became a part of our purview because we are already handling trails and having discussions with the Vine Trail, the Bay Trail, NBTA. We've provided comments, we've received presentations from all of these organizations. And, on our list is to become a bicycle friendly community, to obtain more grant funding, to do more projects. I'm also a bike advocate myself. I've been counting the days until our Vine Trail segment got completed. The new one between Devlin and Green Valley. And I spent much of the summer biking to work, which has been amazing. Also, with the departure of our last public works director, I believe there's been a void of knowledge that we could help fill and provide the continuity of the projects we've been working on in the past and present and future. We have established relationships with NBTA, RCD, all the Ridge Trail, Bay Trail, Vine Trail people, Solano Land Trust, Napa Land Trust. I think that I'm not sure that the city have made those connections yet, but we have those ties to help make those things happen so some of the projects can move forward. There's been projects in the past we always gave feedback on, for example, REI Ridge Trail. Barry brought that to us, and those projects every year we would talk about the priorities of which projects needed to get done. We would have a list and then we would discuss it with the city. And as all of the OSAC members are local residents in the community, we're aware of the needs up in our open spaces for habitat restoration, for example, after the fire. I think that there's more habitat work to be done up there. We have nesting golden eagles that need to be protected. The Canyon Estates development is being built. There's a trail lookout that's supposed to be put up there. So, ensuring all these things that we've set in motion are happening. I think that that's the oversight we could provide. And I think a lot could be missed if we disbanded. And I think that concludes my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to check in now. We have a couple council members who have another meeting they have to get to this evening. How are we doing on time for the two of you?
We're fine. We're fine. I think this is important. I want to hear this because it will segue our meeting tonight.
Me too. I just want to make sure that you meet your other obligation as well.
Thanks, Mayor.
I think it's a Zoom meeting, so it only takes about 2 seconds to leave here and join the next one. And I think they want us there at
You will be joining at what time then?
7-ish.
7.
So
okay, thank
this
you.
could go a little further.
All right, thank you. Okay, who else from OSAC would like to comment?
I think we had Kim next, please. Thank you.
Okay,
thank you. And I will be brief in the interest of time. I do want to just reiterate some of the things that have already been said, but maybe to just, you know, put a different spin on it. For me, first of all, there are the level of expertise on OSAC is quite, you know, impressive and I think really beneficial to the city. And it is distinctive from parks, from the PCS committee. I think I just don't hear enough conversation about what the distinctions are. And I think that those distinctions are important because when we're talking about open space, we are actually talking about sustainability. We are actually talking about issues with regard to climate change as you know, I think it was Melissa who brought that up, and others have also spoken to this. And I also want to say, as Barry has said, that the OSAC has been actually instrumental in the bike plan and contributing to the bike plan, and you know, thinking about and talking about, you know, safety issues with regard to bike lanes and also pedestrian, you know, access. So I think that there's just what I would like to be taken into consideration is the distinctiveness of the OSAC committee, and that it is a separate committee for valid reasons, and it has operated as a separate committee, and there has been very little, as far as I've seen as a committee member, very little overlap. So I would, you know, favor any option that preserves the expertise of this committee. And that's really what I wanted to iterate the most, because it is, I've, you know, served on many committees and boards throughout Napa County, actually. And I really feel like the expertise that is on OSAC is invaluable to the growth of the city, to the maintenance of open space, to the relationships that Tara spoke of, and also Barry spoke of. So that's something that for me as a committee member would be lost if the OSAC committee was dismantled.
Thank you. Other speaker?
Scott, do you have anything?
Yeah, I'll just be super brief. And thanks for the time. And as the newest member of OSAC, my goal in joining was to provide help and guidance with the projects that were brought by the city council members and the community on behalf of wildlife and open spaces. And my goal is to maximize my time and expertise, ensure clear direction for any work or objectives for the benefit of those human and wildlife residents that we have here. And to be honest, I'm not entirely sure which option is the best. And that's why I'm hoping to get that feedback from staff and from council members so that I can ensure that I'm providing my time as best as possible as a volunteer. And then also one that we ensure that the decision is going to get us the furthest and the farthest and the fastest, with goals of making sure that we don't lose the treasures that we have here, and why a lot of our community members are here talking about it today. And so that is all I really wanted to say is at this time, and I'm looking forward to hearing what the council members have to say on the issue.
Thank you. Please go ahead, Nat.
Okay, thank you. I spent a lot of time thinking about this, mostly get my head around what we've done in the almost 20 years and how open space has changed and grown, et cetera, et cetera. I want to just a few brief things that have come up in the conversation. First of all, clarifying the bike plan. Todd Novak and Michael Stanfield wrote the bike plan and circulation routes that are in our Parks and Masters Plan. And we've reviewed it over and over a number of times whenever the countywide bike plan is being updated. And I want to say there's very few changes have been made since they wrote that in probably 2008, 2009. And I know that over the years, a number of bicycle related things have come up. We've tried to do the bike friendly community process a couple times, and we didn't have staff availability to help us gather. There's a lot of information that needs to be gathered for that. Whether open space continues to be the bicycle advisory committee, that's up for discussion. We have a lot of bicyclists in town now that are very much more active. We've got at least 3, if not 4 of us that do bicycle a lot. But our expertise has really been closer to the open space thing. I wanted to address another thing is when we started open space, as chair, I really kind of approached it as a collaborative process. We had 5 people on the committee in the beginning that had lots to say, and we had very long meetings. And as everybody on the committee knows, we had a very long meeting in May, and I apologize for that. I actually found in the minutes that at one point we actually voted to limit our meetings to 2 hours. And I don't know if we ever did that. So I want to say maybe we need to reevaluate how our meetings are and see if we can make them more efficient. Because I know that there's a number of people that say, those meetings are so
interrupt you,
long.
but I've had the same issue with city council. So.
Oh, okay, okay.
I know what you're talking
Anyway, I believe that Jason forwarded all of you. I had put together this document mostly for my own thought process and talking points. And then I realized, oh, this looks really helpful. And I tried to put it in the comments. And I don't know, Liz, if there's a way to put this whole document into the comments, because it obviously a 3-minute limit. I think if I were to read this whole thing for you, it'd be 12 to 15 minutes. I am concerned about the idea of.
Sorry, just I'm asking for to be brief with consideration of time.
I'm going to be brief, and so I'm saying I'm not going to read.
But I'm
not going to read my
Leon, you say.
Leon.
Yeah.
I'm saying I am not going to read my entire 15-minute thing.
Yeah.
I believe you've all been given a copy of it.
Yes.
So I wanted to briefly talk about the 3 options. And I do feel like open space does have a fair amount of work left to do. So option 1 and 3 are important to me. I love the people on open space on PCS. They are excellent people, but I think we're asking a lot of them to come up to speed on an area that the 5 of us have a lot of expertise on. And obviously over time, we're not all going to be on open space. We'll have other experts come along. But I think to lose a group of people that are dedicated and a committee that has a process and a plan to support our open spaces and trails and bicycles would be a mistake. So I'm just going to leave it at that. I have other points on work plan, but I don't think we're going to get to work plan tonight. So I will move on. Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Just want to make sure, I assure you that, we want to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to address the areas that are important to them.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to be brief, and thank you.
Yeah, sure. And we'll have the opportunity to take care of that. I've read your the piece that you wrote as well. Okay.
Thank you.
So as OSAC members reporting in, how's the council feeling? Who would like to discuss this matter?
Well, I'll
Councilmember
start.
Joseph. Go ahead, Mark.
I'd like to start by saying, number one, I appreciate all the comments we've been receiving. They seem to be all supportive of keeping OSAC, which I tend to agree with. And I think it's important to look at it from a larger picture. 3 points that I'd like to make. Number one, open space and the natural amenities are kind of like part of the DNA of this community. It's who we are. And if we acknowledge that open space is that essential, then it just makes sense that you would have a committee, an advisory committee that is all about preserving, enhancing, and maintaining open space. So just looking at it from that 30,000 foot level, it would be foolish to get rid of OSAC. Secondly, advisory committees provide a second set of eyes for staff. And when staff develops ideas and policies, it's always important to have a second set of eyes. And advisory bodies not only provide that, but they also provide a level of accountability and oversight. And they have the community expertise that is so essential to counterbalance the technical expertise of staff. Neither side can do it well. You know, if all you had was an advisory body reflecting community values, it'd probably be okay, but certainly not as good as if you had the technical expertise of staff. Both elements need to be combined to make the best policies. So you always need to have an advisory body overseeing staff, or not so much overseeing, but supplementing with that community value perspective that doesn't always happen with staff. And then lastly, we're talking about, you know, the next generation of leaders and civic engagement and grooming our, you know, building our bench, if you will. So advisory bodies are like critical for giving regular citizens a chance to know what it's like to be in government and to get their feet wet and learn more. And so frankly, under that principle, you know, more committees are better, not less. So for those three reasons, I think OSAC ought to be kept intact at least. Whether or not we consider a separate bike advisory committee, or if we simply provide direction that bikes need to be paid a little more attention to, that is the kind of thing, you know, we can work that out. And again, if we get more citizen engagement, if more people start applying, then I would suggest that we consider it as a separate entity, as the Bike Coalition suggested. So that's why I think OSAC needs to be kept. I do want to comment on a couple of issues, particularly the idea that the purpose of OSAC has largely been complete. I looked at that resolution, the enabling resolution. I'm pretty sure I'm the one who wrote the enabling resolution. So
I think so.
I'm pretty sure I know what its intent was, but I also understand that just because I know what I'm talking about doesn't mean everybody else does. But I want to read a couple of excerpts from it. It says, the purpose of this committee is to oversee open space efforts in and around American Canyon and to periodically report back to the council on open space issues. That doesn't sound like, you know, deal with two issues and you're done. It talks about the council endorses the following goals and projects, recognizing there may be other goals and projects relating to open space, and that the committee should establish priority goals and projects subject to council review and confirmation. And then it talks about the wetlands and the Newell access. So from my perspective, the enabling resolution was clear. The purpose of OSAC was to be an ongoing entity that would, again, focus on the preservation, the enhancement and maintenance of open space amenities in American Canyon. That needs to be preserved. I would like to see the committee get elevated to a commission status. Over the years, they have worked hard. They've worked hard with no pay at all. And granted, the other commissions are not making a lot of money, so it's not like they're going to quit their day jobs. But in recognition of their hard work and their sacrifice and what they've done for us, I think it's appropriate that we throw a few bucks out there and pay them the same as any of the other commissions. So I would advocate for either option 1 or option 3, but certainly not option 2. Getting rid of OSAC would be a foolhardy idea. It just makes no sense. Thank you.
Okay. I think Vice Mayor Adamus was next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I wanted to say that I'm super happy that we changed the date and time of this because we had the opportunity tonight to hear from each and every one of the Open Space Advisory Committee members, which I think is very valuable to us as a council. I want to thank you guys for all of the hard work that you've done. Like Councilmember Joseph said, you guys have put in so much work. Your passion is so clear and it rings so true, I think, to everyone. I don't think anyone in the community can say that OSAC members are not passionate about what they do. So I want to make sure that you guys all know that you are like your efforts are recognized and they're appreciated. Clearly, the expertise on the Open Space Advisory Committee is something that's very valuable. Every time I hear you guys speak, I learn something new. You know, like I have a pretty high graduate degree, and they're things that you guys come up with I could never think of. Like, they just don't pop up in my head. And I do enjoy the open spaces, and I go to Newell and I go to Wetlands, and I'm out there all the time, but the things you guys come up with are not things that I would ever think about. So your expertise is extremely valuable, at least to me. I can't speak for the whole council. I think it's also very clear that open space and PCS are so different. I feel like whenever you think of like parks and recreation, there's a lot of programming, and yes, the parks are physically there, but that's not really the focus, versus open space and sustainability, and climate change, and all of that seems to go hand in hand, and natural habitats and wetlands. And I don't think PCS commissioners are thinking about, what were you saying, Tara? Golden eagles? Golden eagles. I certainly didn't even know what they were until I had a conversation with Tara about them and learned. So I agree with Mark about advocating for options 1 or option 2. Frankly, I mean, option 3, not 2. Frankly, I'm more partial to option 3, and it sounds like members of the Open Space Advisory Committee are well-versed in sustainability as well, but it also sounds like they're interested in continuing work on bicycle planning and things of that nature. So I don't know if it's possible or if it's going to be too much work to make it open space, sustainability, and bicycle paths. If that's too much work, I totally get it. But if it's not, then I would like to see an option 3 plus the bike stuff included there. And you guys are going to have to tell me if that's possible or not. The last thing I want to say is, as an advisory committee, yes, you guys are to advise us on policy that we bring to you, but I would also like for the Open Space Advisory Committee to have an opportunity to bring policy issues to the council. Like I said before, every time I hear you guys speak, I learn something new. So there may be policy issues out there that we need to discuss that we're not even aware of. Councilmember Joseph always talks about having regular meetings with our advisory committees. Maybe in our annual meeting with OSAC /sustainability/bike committee, there can be an opportunity there for you guys to bring policy issues to us, and then, we decide if we want to tackle them or not. But I would really like an opportunity for you guys, OSAC, to be able to bring stuff to us as well. And those are my comments for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Washington.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And OSAC, thank you for your presentation. And I gotta say, or your comments. And I also gotta say thanks to the public for chiming in to share their thoughts. I was really impressed with hearing what they had to say as well. From a resident's perspective, it's obvious that OSAC is a committee that the majority of our residents want to see remain. And to your point, Barry, you sold me on the power to the people statement. I mean, I when you went there, I'm like, all right, you're right. That's absolutely why this council is sitting here, is because the people put us here, and we need to be listening. I'd be the first to tell you that when it first came to my attention, or actually I would say first, it was OSAC that helped me jettison into my role right now. So thank you, OSAC. Secondly, I would say when it first came to my attention that we were considering disbanding the OSAC, I kind of looked at it from a business standpoint. And, from a business standpoint, you have a mission, you have a process, you go through it, and once you complete it, it's done. But to Mark's point, he kind of like highlighted the purpose of how he wrote that contract. And that was one thing I never did. I never sat there and talked to the people that wrote it so I could understand what the true purpose of the committee initially was. Between Barry and Nance, I mean, I think they lasted me down about 4 or 5 times from breakfast to events around the city to kind of express to me the importance of keeping this, and I know from Kim talking to her, how passionate she is about this. And then listening to the people that chime in on the call, I haven't heard not one person say that it should go away. So I guess for my question, the only question I would say from the group is, what do we as a council want to see OSAC do for us in the future? Because it seems like we're going to be in a direction that we probably will be keeping it. I initially, like I was going to mention earlier, was going to go option 2 because I thought mission accomplished. Maybe that's my military, my law enforcement background mindset of thinking, look, we did it, just move forward. Then I went to option 1, leave it the way it is because everybody seems to be happy with what's going on. And Nancy made a good point when you said, hey, look, we had a conversation last meeting that maybe we should reduce our 4-hour meet to 2-hour meet. I think everybody in the oversight committee would probably, give you a high five for that. And then the staff, accountability when you start talking about staffing hours. So that's how I was looking at it initially when I was saying option 2. I'm looking at, what's the purpose from a business standpoint, and everything can't be looked at as a business standpoint. It has to be looked at also from a community standpoint. What's the value? And the value is right now I have everybody telling me on the call from the OSOC and the callers that this is something that they want. This is something that we need. This is something that is the identity of American Canyon. So I'm leaning toward option 3, but I also like what Scott said. I'm like a sponge right now. I'm trying to gather up all the information from everybody to kind of figure out what is the best option for us. But from what I hear today from everybody, it seems like OSOC is here to stay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Oro.
Thank you very much for your time. And first, let me start by praising the work that the Open Space Advisory Committee has done over the years. It's the most dedicated group I've seen in the city in terms of making an amenity available to the city, and they don't even know how good they have it because of your work. So thank you for that. Listen, I'm gonna just go throw option 2 out the window. That's not for me, all right? And I think we have consensus there across the council. I haven't heard from the mayor yet, but it's 4 or 5 now at least. And thinking this through, having this discussion is very helpful, and I'm glad we're here today in this format doing it. On option 1, we did achieve this goal of creating an open space for ourselves and access to that group. Nance talked a lot about the bike part of it, and Barry did as well. The problem is, I think, for us and for probably the public, is a lot of that was unseen, meaning, having these conversations, setting these policies, putting that book in place, that bike plan. It's actually the city's fault, our collective fault, of not implementing all of that. And if we can focus on that, we could probably implement that plan. We have enough plans in the city. Let's get into the action of creating a more bike safe city. One thing that hasn't come up in all of this is the staff report talks about hiring somebody to oversee open space. And I think that is a dedicated role that's going to be new that I think will be very helpful for us. I know Director Ikeda helped out with a new management plan for the Newell Preserve, working with the ranchers there. That still has to play out. We're doing things to support the open space group, and I'm excited about that. What I want to know is, and I'm asking myself, how do we reconstitute the OSAC committee? And if we go to option 3, because I think it has to expand a little bit, continuing to see open space, but also I really like the idea that the Napa County Bicycle Coalition suggested, active transportation and sustainability. And under that umbrella becomes the bike plan and sustainability. And as committee member Mr. Williams said to us, sustainability, open space and sustainability go together. I would love to see that happen for us. And I think, we need to think about the opportunity a little bit differently. What can we challenge you all to do to make it better with open space routes, but taking it to the next level? And if we can find a way to do that, I think we elevate the commission and make it paid and continue to rely on your good strength and resources to make biking and sustainability and open space better. We really need those watchdogs for us. And the key thing is focus, right? Don't get much more than that. We would never do it if it was combined with PCS. How do we make this happen? Thanks.
Thank you. I'd like to make my comments this time. You know, I'm not about making OSAC go away. Well, the amount of work that they've done is tremendous, and it's a great value to the community. What I'm looking at is a combination of park and recreation, park and community services, and OSAC, the work that OSAC does, coming together in some form as an option 2. Because the benefit of that is you have now recreational programming, you have the staff, and you pull in what the environmental side of the equation. It's what that OSAC has put together. So there's constant feedback in terms of how to make this more meaningful to the community. How do we make it more a richer education experience? How do we make it a richer personal engagement experience? You know, going up to Newell and being able to experience that, or the wetlands out to the river, hiking on the trail. There's environmental components that OSAC takes care of. Park and Rec on their side can take care of engaging the community, those programmings. American Canyon Community and Parks Foundation is going to be opening up an ecology center. It's in the plans to do it. There's shared programming concepts that can be put together by merging the effort together. If we stand alone in our own silos, then we communicate in our own silos. And no, I'm not saying it never crosses over. I'm saying I see a greater benefit by combining the activities together in one roof. However we put that together, but maintain the quality of engagement and knowledge that OSAC has with park and community services in terms of activities and programming for the community as a whole. There's far more capacity in parks and community services to do that, in my understanding. And that's why I think it's a valuable asset. I think it's misleading always to suggest that this option 2 is getting rid of OSAC. I don't support that, and I don't think that's the intent. The intent is to take the value and the knowledge and the capacity of OSAC over to Park and Rec's community services side, and have programming that engages the community on a much wider basis around them. That's my thinking. Okay, Vice Mayor Abadamos, Mayor, you're up next.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. I have two more things that I wanted to add. One is some of the commissioners mentioned having contacts with different partners, open space partners, the Solano Land Trust, the RCD, and whoever. I would really like to task you with taking it upon yourselves to make those connections with introducing Director Ikeda to them if you haven't already. And then Director Ikeda, of course, I would like for you to follow up and have coffee with these people and build the same relationships that our commissioners have, or similar ones. Not necessarily, you don't necessarily have to have a relationship with everybody, but I would love for, that continuity to be there. The other thing is, Councilmember Oro, you reminded me, I did have in my notes about the rec coordinator. That full-time rec coordinator position is listed under option 2. So I'm curious about what that job description entails. It says that we are actively recruiting for this position. In this position, are we seeking somebody with any sustainability experience, any expertise in open spaces, bicycle stuff, or what are we looking for in this candidate, and what's in the job description?
Yeah, I can answer that, Vice Mayor Abadamos. When we talked about this even during the budget process, one of the strategies that we are using in our human resources plan or world is to get away from single class positions, to get away from a position that has a limited upside, has limited mobility upwards and limited future. And so the council approved as a part of the 22-23 budget 2 additional recreation coordinator positions. We have 2 already, and when the council approved 2 more. And so these positions are broad. The council agreed to modify those job descriptions to include a wide range of potential assignments. And so in the case of the current recruitments, we have one recruitment that's focused on our pool, focused on the aquatics area, and the other recruitment is focused on our open space and facilities. And so that recruitment, the job description is the recreation coordinator, which is very, very broad, but the recruitment is focused on open space and facility rentals.
Okay, so with that, another thing I wanted to emphasize is we used to be a very volunteer heavy city. So volunteers used to do a lot of the work that we have now staff members to do. And we were talking about getting away from that. And I'm not saying do not have this position. I, especially with like 4-hour long meetings and 5-hour long meetings, I think Director Akita could use the help overseeing the Open Space Advisory Committee. But I just want to remind everybody how important our volunteers are to our city. And when I was first elected, there was a lot of concern that we were losing all of our volunteers to paid staff. Volunteers are the backbone of American Canyon. Just look at our OSAC committee and how much work they've put in. Going through all of the minutes from past meetings to prepare just for tonight's meeting, that's a lot of work in and of itself. So there's something to be said about volunteers who have an expertise in a specific area. 3 out of 5 of our OSAC members have degrees, I think you said, in some environmental studies. So they can directly speak on issues of sustainability and environment, and they're doing it for free. So I just, not that, you know, that needs a response. I just wanted to put that back out there. It was in my notes to say, totally skipped over it.
Thank you for that. I know I think COVID had a lot to do with the impact on volunteerism in American Canyon, but I know prior to that, I mean, many times I've been out there with large groups of volunteers up on the Newell Open Space, working on the trail, helping plant trees, et cetera, et cetera. Barry led a lot of those details, and we certainly saw a great participation of the community in it. Councilmember Joseph, Mark, you're next.
Well, first of all, it sounds like there's a consensus that option 2 isn't really an option, and it's either option 3 or something like it. So, which I find heartening. But that means we need to focus to the last page of the document, which is the draft work plan, because certainly I think we need to revisit some of it. Number 1, items 4, 5, and 6 are just topics. They don't give us any action verb to tell us what exactly we're expecting the committee to do. And certainly what we need to do is add something relating to bikes. We do have a bike master plan. As Councilmember Oro pointed out, he wants us to be a bike first community. I've been talking to Students for Climate Action, and I can tell you that their theme is going to be, we need to build our bike master plan out. So it seems to me that a bike friendly, whatever that bike community grant that we talked about that staff didn't have staff time, so we never did, seems to have been ill-advised, but it's something that I think ought to be added to this work plan, that we try to put together that grant so we can get that designation. I think we ought to add something relating to implementing the bike master plan. And as for the other items, we just need to clarify what exactly do we mean when we say Jaeger open space. So that's where I'd like to get some attention and focus on, because clearly if we're going to look at open space, sustainability, and bikes, we've got to have something in the work plan that relates to all 3. I think the Bike Coalition makes a good point. Even though we've been involved in bikes, there's obviously a whole lot more to do. And so those are a couple of suggestions relating to parks. And so for me, I think the work plan is what we need to focus on next. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good point. The work plan, I think with respect to bicycles, that side of it is also in the planning commission on streets, et cetera. And I think probably that's where it belongs better than with space advisory. There's a component, I appreciate all the work on the trails, but we also have to remind ourselves that we have city streets and highway to deal with as well. And that's a bigger picture. Councilmember Oro, David, you're up next.
Yeah, sure, no problem. Listen, I want to address the thing on volunteers. Volunteers shouldn't go away. They should be part of it. It should be bolstered by a great network of professional staff who can rally, gather, and provide the resources. I know that Newell Space is a big mountain bike area. There's plenty of mountain bike groups that are there that can help maintain trails and do things like that. We should leverage them all the way, and we should encourage our citizens to do that. On the work plan itself, I don't know if that should be discussed tonight. We won't have time for it, but I think it's the next step. My suggestion here is to make a decision on the direction of the Open Space Advisory Committee. And I'm leaning on 3 in terms of an active transportation and open space and sustainability that and it may not be all those words, but it could be something like that. We'll focus on bikes, let's focus on open space, which really is an umbrella for sustainability. And it's going to do a lot of things for us. It's going to keep our open space available and up to date for us, as well as improve safety of our streets and activity that's happening around here. There's a lot to do that. And before we go tonight, I would love to hear what OSAC would think of that process. Like, are you okay and comfortable with that in that direction? And I think elevating it to a paid position is a worthy cause. Thanks.
Thank you. Well, I'm certainly been in favor of two with regard to either one or three, both of those options. I really would like to see more of some way that we connect the activities of OSAC with Park and Community Services in terms of programming, because there's a valuable asset there. There's a knowledge that OSAC has that could be brought over as a recreational activity for our youth, children, and families. And there's that piece, I think, could be enhanced through programming Park and Rec. So if there's a way to put these, meld these two together on that issue, I think it brings far more valuable community. Parking, yeah, okay. Chair Mattson, Nance, you're up next.
Well, it sounds like you have a two-part mission here. One is to decide on which option you're going with, and two, for us to give you some feedback on how we think this might roll out. Is that right? Do you want us to quickly go through part two, or do you need to decide on part one first?
I think a wise use of our time is deciding on part one, and if we can actually agree as a council on how this might be reconstituted. The part two is the work plan. Is that what you're talking about, Nance?
Yeah, and I'm wondering if I'm sorry, I don't have my hand up still. Apologize. If the path forward would be, if you're deciding on one or three, or the option that it then goes back to open space, and we at our next meeting flush out a lot of that thing and then come back to you.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah. That's what I was thinking. That it comes back to us in the direction that we decide on tonight. And I think for me personally, the most valuable thing you can do is react to the discussion that we had just now as from council members, briefly, because I know we only have like 23 minutes. So
that's what I understood, Nance, is that Councilmember Oro wanted you guys to weigh in on the discussion we just had. How do you feel about one? How do you feel about three? If you were to choose, which one would you prefer, kind of a deal? Okay,
if it's okay, let's just, Leon, go through the open space members one at a time quickly to say where we are.
Yep.
Whoever wants to go first, or do you want me to do it on my usual who's in which way? So Cara, Kim, Barry, Scott, and then me.
Can I ask that? Can we just briefly state what those are? Because there's so many details. I know
the choices are OSAC as it is right now, okay? And the other one is reconstituting it as a committee that I think what I heard from the council, and Jason, tell me if I'm off here, but it is a bicycle open space sustainability kind of committee that focus on those three things for city. And I also have no pause in elevating it to a paid position as a full committee.
Yeah, Councilmember Oro, yeah, that's my understanding of the conversation. The council supports option three generally, and as noted in the staff report, if the council wants to choose option three, then we'd return back to council with updated budget requests, updated resolutions, updated work plan that would be done in conjunction with open space, at their next meeting. And then we would come back to council with the updated resolution and work plan covering all the topics that were proposed.
Seems to be the sentiment from the conversation, particularly from our council, on moving in that direction.
And the next step right now is just to get your reactions to the way that we're leaning. Nothing more.
Okay, let's start with, if Tara, if you want to start.
Yeah, I support option 3. I would love to take that on. That sounds exciting to me, and it makes sense that we would come back and kind of restructure our plan and put some more weight on some of these other topics.
Do you think it's feasible to do sustainability, open space, and bikes?
Yes.
Okay.
Kim?
I echo what Tara said. I support option 3. I do think it's feasible to include bikes and sustainability. And I think that if it's going to be elevated from a committee to a commission, then it should definitely, if that is that my understanding, that it would be a commission now and not a committee.
Yes.
Then I think it would that warrants expanding the purview of the committee or what would be the commission. Yes.
Barry?
Yeah, that works for me.
Scott?
Yeah, I am a sustainability person and wildlife, as I said, open spaces and habitat. And so that works for me. I guess I'm not necessarily a bicycle person or know the ins and outs of that, but I adapt quickly and can weigh in on it. I guess my only thing is I'm not, is in terms of, I guess, language, the definition between the committee and the commission, if there is any additional parts to that definition of what that entails, that I am not sure of. So if somebody could give me a brief breakdown, or if there's any changes or differences between what we are now versus a commission, that would be great.
Yeah, in some sense, Scott, the distinctions are really around, I'll call it the paid status. There tends to be a little more hierarchy, I guess. The referrals and the minutes and everything else tend to have a little more, I don't know, appearance of importance, if you will. In the past, OSAC hadn't recorded its meetings in the chambers, whereas PCS and Planning Commission and City Council had. We under this scenario, practically you'd be sitting at the dais, just like the council does, on the video screen, on YouTube, that sort of thing. So that sort of, in a lot of ways it's appearance, but there is sort of an association there. So, at this point, the council hasn't designated any, final decision-making authority. The Planning Commission is the only body that enjoys that by virtue of the zoning code and certain applications. PCS nor OSAC in either constitution have that. So there wouldn't be any final decision-making authority. But again, it would you would receive a stipend for a monthly stipend for meeting attendance.
Thank you.
I think I'm the last one, and I am in favor of option 3. I think it provides some exciting changes to our work, and it sounds great. Thank you.
Maybe I'd like to hear a OSAC weigh in on the issue I spoke to, some way of being able to bring the activities that you have in collaboration with Park and Community Services in terms of programming, because I think that's the piece that's most valuable to me in terms of being able to have these two groups work together.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, it looks like committee member Hester Williams had her hand up to close the loop on the last conversation. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Before we move forward.
Oh, okay. No, that's okay. No, I was recognized earlier. So I'm just gonna say I don't, maybe I'll just fold these in together. Yes, I support OSAC working with PCS, and we've actually worked with PCS and had joint meetings before. So maybe that can be something that's institutionalized. To speak to Mayor Garcia's point, that we maybe have that something that's something that happens regularly or more regularly, and we can talk about that and how that can be, how we can sort of organize that work, the work that we do together.
Thank you for that. I think that brings the knowledge and experience of OSAC and the activities they're engaged in with a component that touches the the American Canyon through recreational activity. It's great. It adds the two is an experience to understand the importance of the environmental issues, and gives an education component that benefits the community in terms of activity. So it gets them, they're hands-on, they get to touch.
Yes, I agree with that. I just wanted to quickly say that I actually would be in favor of us looking at the membership of the committee and actually, or what would be the commission, and having someone with expertise or connection with the bike, the biking component. I think we need to take a look at that. If we're going to fold that into our work, then I think we need to look at the membership and make sure that we have, adequate, an adequate knowledge base for that specific component.
The other members of OSAC agreeable with what we were just discussing? Give a thumbs up or a nod. Does that make sense? Okay.
I think it's all part of the discussion. I think these are all great ideas. Barry has his hand up.
That's Barry.
Yeah, just fire mitigation. I don't know. I would think that would fall into sustainability or open space, but there's going to be some decisions to be made about the brush in the creek, maybe other brush too, but that's going to be
the fire district is addressing that, so that's an issue to take up with the fire district as well.
Yeah, it's going to be big throughout the county, but there's going to be pressure to come in here and do some kind of treatment of the Newell Creek so that it's more fire resistant. And that's done a lot of times through what you plant there and what you remove. And so that's going to, so I'm just thinking if you want to throw that in there, or if you've got other ideas, but it might be something to consider in whose responsibilities it's going to be.
That's in the, I think that's in the purview of the fire district, frankly. It's separate from the city. I know sometimes it's hard to explain that to people. We're the only city in the whole county that has a separate fire district. So, and that is in their work plan, fire prevention. The conversation to be had with the fire district.
Okay.
Anything else?
Well, if there's no further, Mark?
I'm just gonna, I went through the formal process of raising my hand. I was about to say, if there was no further comment, I'll make a motion.
I had it going, dude.
I know, I'm just stealing your thunder tonight.
Let's focus, folks.
I would make a motion that we accept option 3, including open space, sustainability, and bikes. 2, that we direct OSAC to finalize their work plan and bring it back to the council for authorization. And that work plan should include some bike elements and sustainability elements. And thirdly, that we will establish that a joint meeting with the council will be scheduled at least annually.
And then I think 4th is elevate OSAC to a paid commission.
Oh, well, that is built into option 3, but we can spell it out. So 4 would be upgrade the committee to a commission.
I'll second that.
Okay. Well, shall we start the vote with OSAC?
I actually have a clarification. Can I ask a clarification question? Is
Certainly.
that proper? Do we also need to redraft our reauthorization document to reflect all this as part of, OSAC doing that, or is staff doing that, or council? Because it seems like that document has to be created, right, or edited?
Yeah.
Updated.
Yeah.
Listen, I think the details will be handled by city.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We're making the motion.
Yeah.
To do this, and the staff will do the details.
Right.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
And Leon, were you then asking for OSAC to vote on this?
Yes.
Okay, I will leave it to Liz.
Wait, OSAC
No.
or council?
Right?
Council's voting on this.
No.
Council.
Yeah.
I thought Leon asked OSAC, so I was like confused. Okay, go for it.
I did. My error. We're going to ask council to vote.
Okay, roll call.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Joseph?
Yes.
Thank you. Councilmember Oro?
Yeah, I got to get one last comment in here. When we're talking about the integration of PCS and programs with open space, I don't know if it falls on them, but I think that's where the communications department of the city comes together and communicates events out to the community. And I'm going to vote yes for this.
Thank you. Councilmember Washington?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Abadamos?
Yes.
Thank you. And Mayor Garcia.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate this discussion and how it turned out. And I hope we don't do this again in 4 years like we did 4 years ago.
Oh, we should be, you know, we have our annual get together at least on that.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So I'm looking forward to those joint sessions to be productive towards what did we get done and what are we going to do next year. Thank you.
I'm looking forward to seeing how we can integrate the activities of both together to the benefit of the community. You know, that's the value of it. And certainly give me a broader perspective of OSAC this evening as well. I certainly value and appreciate the work you've done. That's exemplary for many communities around us as well. Because, you know, it's the message going forward that will be communicated to the younger population, seeing one right here this evening, going forward, the quality of their life. They're actually the responsibility we have to each other in terms of maintaining the environment. Very good. Well, it appears we have concluded our work for this evening. Anything further for the greater good? If not, thank you. We ended, thank you. I want to thank you all for managing time. I was real concerned that, you know, council meetings, yeah, they tend to go on, as I always say, as long as we want to talk. And, you know, that's not belittling that. That's just conversation. And sometimes a lengthy conversation adds just more meaning to what the discussion is all about. But I do thank everybody's input this evening. It's been very valuable. And with that being said, we have completed our work. We're adjourned. Bye, little one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you.